Okay, so we have here the antimicrobial susceptibility testing with our Kirby-Bauer method or your DIS diffusion. Okay, basically we can perform your antimicrobial susceptibility testing by three methods. One is your broth dilution, agar dilution, third one is your DIS diffusion. But we'll be taking today here would be the DIS diffusion or your Kirby-Bauer method. Okay, procedure for this one, first, going to prepare here your standardized inoculum. So how are you going to prepare your standardized inoculum? So from your selective media, okay, for example, this is your selective media, may nag-grow dito, then you have that one. Okay, so we have here the isolated colony from that. Okay, so what you're going to pick up here would be the isolated colony. So ito yung mga isolated na colony. Do not pick here on this area ng mga thick na growth ng bacteria natin from your selective or your enriched culture media. So just pick here your isolated na colony from this selective media and try to inoculate that one with either your DSB or your trypticase soy broth or even your NSS, your saline solution. So kukuha ka dito ng 5 colony and then transfer for this one. Okay? And then try to, okay, transfer to that one. And then try to observe here for the growth. Okay, so approximately you try to transfer here try to pick 4 to 5 na colonies, isolated colonies. Transfer that one with your TSB or even your NSS. Okay, and then try to incubate at 37 degrees Celsius for 2 to 8 hours. Until this one will try to develop here turbidity. Pag naging turbid na ito, mean to say you have already nag-grow ng bacteria mo dito. From this one, nilipat mo dito. Pag nag-turbid na siya, what you're going to do now is to standardize your inoculum. Hindi tayo pwede na sobrang thick ang inoculum natin, sobrang dami na bacteria natin, or hindi rin pwede na sobrang thin ang ating bacteria or inoculum natin or kulang ang bacteria natin. It will have an effect with your antimicrobial susceptibility testing with your different antibiotic discs mamaya. So with that, we need to standardize by comparing with our 0.5 McFarland standard. Your 0.5 McFarland standard is what we have discussed in the lectures, made up of your 1.175% na barium chloride and 1% na sulfuric acid. That's the content of your McFarland standard. So your McFarland standard for the Kirby-Bauer or your distribution contains this bacteria. Okay, 1.5 times 10 to the 8 na bacterial count. So, dapat ganito din magiging bacteria natin with our inoculum. So, how are you going to know that one would have your equivalent nito? So, compare mo lang ang turbidity dito. If dapat pareho sila ng turbidity ng ating McFarland standard. Okay, so kung pareho na sila ng turbidity, you can compare that one by just visual comparison. So, i-compare mo lang silang dalawa. Or you can also perform the spectrophotometry. Okay, so that will have better for you then to really compare na pareho sila ng turbidity. But of course, mas madali ang visual comparison. I-compare mo lang with your sarili mo lang. Ganun lang. So what happens, sir, for example, if yung bacterial inoculum mo na prepare hindi pareho ng turbidity ng ating McFarland standard, then you need to make adjustment. Okay, pag thick, we need to say mas turbid ito compare with your McFarland standard. So what you're going to do here is just to dilute. Kung ito ginamit mo na medium mo, so lalagyan mo siya ng NSS para ma-dilute siya. Or kung TSB ginamit mo, idilagyan mo ng TSB para ma-dilute siya in order for that to have the same turbidity with our McFarland standard. Kung sobrang thin naman, so mean to say, hindi siya ganon ka-turbid compared with this one, so all you need to do here is to add more bacteria. Kukuha ka ulit ng bacteria dito and then allow it to grow. And then until na mag-match na siya ng ating McFarland standard. If nag-match na siya ng McFarland standard natin, bacterial inoculum, then you have already your standardized inoculum. If you have already your standardized inoculum, the next thing you're going to do here is we have your plate inoculation. Ang ginagamit natin for the Kirby-Bauer would be your MHA or your Miller-Hinton agar. So procedure for that, out of your standardized na inoculum, okay, kukuha ka dito with your swab. So, immerse mo lang swab mo dito. and then try to remove the excess na fluid natin. So pag ganun mo, sobrang basa ng swab natin, so ayaw naman natin sobrang liquid mamaya ang pag naglagay tayo sa Miller Hindon agar. So medyo ano natin, pagdaan mo sa dito sa mouth ng tester mo dito, so medyo ipipigain mo siya dito. Okay, so i-touch mo siya, ipipress mo siya, that will allow the removal of your excess na fluid. So with your MHA, so just need to streak ang ating swab. So ganun dapat, when you are swabbing that one, make sure that you're able to form here an even surface throughout your culture media. So, iganon mo siya. Ganyan. So, dapat even para even ang growth ng ating bacteria. So, ayaw natin makikita na may mga space. So, ganyan. And then, ganyan mo ulit siya. Okay. You try to repeat that one for 3 times. Okay. And to make sure here na even lahat ang ating growth ng ating bacteria for that. Hindi po, kasi pag hindi siya even, katulad nito, makikita mo na may mga lines, hindi magiging maganda ang magiging growth or magiging result niya with our antimicrobial susceptibility testing later on with the zone of the inhibition. That's why make sure na even lahat throughout the medium. And pag natapos ka, you try to swab. Papadaanin mo dito ang swab sa gilid. Ganyan. Okay, that will allow here the bacteria to grow even at the edge of your Miller-Hinton agar. After that one, try to dry the plate for 3 to 15 minutes. It should not be more than 15 minutes. Wait lang pala. Okay, 15 minutes of your standardization, dapat ipi-plate mo na agad siya sa Miller-Hinton agar natin. Okay, and then here, pag after you have already inoculated your bacteria, standardized bacteria on your MHA, okay, plate, you try to dry that one for 3 to 15 minutes. And after that one, you try to apply your antibiotic disc. Our antibiotic disc, may nakalagay siya, usually, maliliit lang naman yan, like mga yan, E, tapos may 5, ganon. Usually, the letter represents here the acronym of your antibiotic. Like, for example, E, erythromycin. Ang 5, ang number dyan na 5, represents here the concentration. So, pag 5, that one is microgram. That's the unit of your antibiotic disc. So, this one is 5 microgram na erythromycin. Okay, so, how are you going to put your antibiotic disc here? You use your forceps in order for you then to transfer your antibiotic disc to your plated na Miller-Hinton agar or inoculated na Miller-Hinton agar. Okay, but first here, you need to flame your forceps. Okay, then pag na-flame ka after that one, wag ka munang kumuha ng antibiotic disc here pag mainit pa ang ating forceps. So, allow it to cool before you try to get one antibiotic disc. Ganun mo siya ng forceps, then try to transfer here. Okay, and here, with different antibiotics. So, ito ang rule natin. Okay, so gaano kalayo ang spacing ng antibiotic disc natin? 10 mm should not be less than, so pag not less than not less than 10 mm at the edge. So, dito, hindi ka pwede sobrang lapit dito. Because kung sobrang lapit ka mamaya, baka sobrang laki ng zone of inhibition niya. So, hindi mo na siya ma-measure accurately kung gaano ba siya kalaki kasi sobrang lapit mo dito sa edge. So, that's why it should be not less than 10 mm. And between of your antibiotic discs here, so for example, isa dito, okay, ang space sa kanila, isa't isa, should not be less than 30 mm. Okay, so always remember that one to prevent the overlapping of the growth later on. Kasi baka sobrang lapit nila, ano mangyari? Okay, kung ito, for example, ito sobrang laki niya, ito, paano na magiging zone of inhibition niya mamaya? Okay, then after you have already applied all your antibiotic discs, okay, so within 15 minutes of application, applying all the antibiotic discs, you try to incubate that one, wag mo nang patagalin. You put that one in the incubator at the required na temperature. Again, we try to either incubate the bacteria at 35 or 37 at a different na temperature at different na time duration. So, may mga meron na 24 hours, may 48 to 72 hours, Again, it will be highly dependent on your bacteria, but usually 24 hours incubation. The next thing here is after incubation, you try to measure the zone of the inhibition. How are you going to measure here the zone of the inhibition? So, like for example, this is your antibiotic, this here, so this is your zone of inhibition. So zone of inhibition is the clear area surrounding your colony. Okay, so you can use the ruler or vernier caliper in order for you then to measure the zone of inhibition in millimeter. Okay, that's the unit for the zone of inhibition. So how are you going to measure the zone of inhibition? So if this one, you can draw a line. So ganun ha. Okay, from this area to that area, that become your zone of inhibition. Pag wala siyang zone of inhibition, like for example, ito yung antibiotic natin. Okay, so do not we report the zone of inhibition here as the diameter including your antibiotic disc. So pag wala siyang zone of inhibition, we are not reporting 0 millimeter, but rather, kasi may antibiotic ka pa, no? So, ito yung may measure mo lang. So, kung ano ang diameter ng antibiotic disc mo, so mean to say that's going to report. Wala kang result dito na zone of inhibition as 0. Because again, part ng ating measurement is your diameter ng antibiotic disc. On the other hand, so if magandang growth niya ng zone of inhibition natin, pag magandang zone of inhibition, you can measure the entire diameter. Pero kung minsan, hindi ganun kaganda ang zone of inhibition. So, like for example, kung ito siya ang antibiotic disc natin, so parang ganyan lang siya. So, hindi mo malaman kung gaano pa talaga kalaki ang diameter. So, all you need to do is measure the radius lang. So, ganon. Hanggang dito lang. Whatever your measurement, okay, i-multiply mo by 2. So, that becomes still your actual na zone of inhibition. And then for the interpretation, so try to refer to the manufacturer's chart of the cutoff ng mga zone of inhibition. So based on that, we can report the following results: susceptible, intermediate, or resistant. So usually pag susceptible siya, ay mali ata. Ganyan. Pag susceptible siya, okay, it's more than the cut-off na values natin. Like for example, ang cut-off na values natin is 10 millimeter. Pag sobrang laki niya, more than 10, for example, so that's susceptible, mean to say your antibiotic here is effective in suppressing or suppressing the growth of your bacteria. On the other hand, pag less than the cut-off na value natin, then we consider it was resistant. Mean to say sobrang liit lang ng zone of inhibition, so resistant ng bacteria natin. That's our interpretation. But you could have also here the intermediate, so just need to refer to the manufacturer chart for the interpretation. Okay, so thank you.